Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, and I'd like to thank our witnesses for being here today. This is not our first hearing that we've held about conditions on the southern border, or the second, or even the third. The Committee on Homeland Security has held 23 prior hearings this Congress on the southern border, yet not a single hearing has resulted in any meaningful solutions from my Republican colleagues. When they had the chance to do real work by considering a bipartisan border deal negotiated in the Senate, my Republican colleagues rejected it and yielded to the demands of President-elect Donald Trump, sabotaging a solution in favor of maintaining a political talking point. This bill, described as the toughest bill in generations. This was a common-sense border security bill that would have strengthened our defenses, included new presidential emergency authority to shut down the border when necessary, and provided much-needed personnel and resources to communities. But Trump said no. Now, Trump is returning to the presidency, and we're seeing a resurgence of his partisan agenda taking precedence over meaningful solutions. Project 2025, drafted in part by Trump's new border czar, Thomas Homeland, underscores the Republican strategy of chaos and dysfunction. This initiative aims to drastically reduce immigration, dismantle key security agencies, and impose sweeping restrictions on asylum seekers, all while failing to address humanitarian concerns or economic realities that drive immigration. Donald Trump's planned mass deportation, which will include nonviolent and hardworking individuals, will distract law enforcement from prioritizing violent criminals and national security threats. Such policies epitomize the Republican approach: no real solution, no viable path forward, just chaos. While I understand my Republican colleagues wish to continue their partisan border rhetoric, today's hearing should have focused on protecting our nation from the increasing threat of natural disasters, which devastate communities every year, causing loss of life and billions of dollars in damages. This subcommittee has oversight jurisdiction of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and it's puzzling that after one of the deadliest and most costly hurricane seasons, we're not discussing the impacts of Hurricane Helene or Milton, or how subcommittees' work can help disaster survivors. Under Republican leadership, Congress has failed to pass critical disaster relief measures that could help communities recover from devastating disasters, despite the Biden-Harris administration's request for supplemental funding for the Disaster Relief Fund in both June and November of 2024. No additional funds have been allocated to help communities recover from devastation. This is not a Republican or Democratic issue. This is an American issue. As we sit here today, Republican leadership is slow-walking the disaster relief package while Americans are without help. Specifically, the Small Business Administration announced 2 months ago that its disaster loan program has run out of funding, leaving 18,000 businesses and homeowners without critical support they need to rebuild. We should be talking about this today. My district is no stranger to disasters, and the thought of Congress not moving with the utmost speed to help survivors is extremely troubling. Republicans' unwillingness to provide critical funding does not stop at disasters. They've targeted Homeland Security grants, which are vital for emergency response, and are within the sub-jurisdiction of this subcommittee. Today's hearing could have also been about Homeland Security grant program dollars to better support law enforcement, especially since Republicans pushed for an enacted 10% cut to the Homeland Security grant program, like the Urban Area Security Initiative, the State Homeland Security Program, Operation Stone Garden, and the Nonprofit Security Grant, which supports law enforcement and communities. Also, Project 2025 has called for these grants to be terminated. All of this is familiar because during his presidency, Donald Trump proposed slashing $700 million from these grants in fiscal year 2021. As one can see, There's plenty of work to be done for the subcommittee to do. I look forward to the next Congress and hope my Republican colleagues will prioritize safeguarding our communities from disasters and providing support for those working to help keep America safe. As I said earlier, these are American issues. They're not Republican or Democratic issues. And it's high time that this committee and this Congress address issues that face the American people and not individual parties. With that, I yield back.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ranking Member. I just want to point out that President-elect Donald Trump has made it very clear that Project 2025 was nothing to do with his administration. In fact, I think he said that he didn't even read it. And when we talk about the border bill that we're saying that Republicans failed on, that was not a solution, it was a surrender. It codified the mess that Joe Biden created. It continued catch and release. It allowed 5,000 migrants into this country per day. No wall. It reaffirmed Biden's parole abuses. It funneled billions of dollars to NGOs. It empowered smugglers and traffickers. And it provided immediate work permits to hundreds of thousands of people.
And if
other members of the subcommittee are reminded.
Just briefly.
You're recognized.
Very respectfully, your comments are in conflict with numerous news reports, even on Fox News, CNN, and the various cable stations that suggest that the comments that you made that refute my comments are inconsistent with what actual testimony suggests.
I'm going to stick with my comments and know that the Republicans did their best to absolutely secure this border, and were stopped every step of the way because of the Biden administration. They could have secured the border on day one with executive orders, but instead allowed this country to enable hundreds of thousands and millions more people to come across our
The bipartisan bill that was in the Senate that President Trump insisted stop, would you also say that Republicans were for that? I think it was a bipartisan bill that had members of both the House, but both Republicans.
With all due respect, because one member of the Senate says that it's bipartisan doesn't make it bipartisan. Where the starting point should have been is H.R. 2, which was negotiated in this room. Again, I never said, with all due respect, I never said it was perfect. But what I did say is that, and I've said this all along, it could have been a starting point.
I think it was a lot more than one member of the Senate that supported that bipartisan bill. It was not one member of the Senate, it was multiple.
I am very pleased to have such an important panel of witnesses before us today. I ask that the witnesses please rise and raise their right hands.